So this is the last portion of the Forces of Evil anthroposophy. So, between Scylla and Charybdis. In classical mythology, Odysseus, as representative of the striving man, had to sail between Scylla and Charybdis, identified physically as a rock and a whirlpool in the Straits of Messina. Mythological pictures can be interpreted on several levels, and in this story, one can easily think of the two forces mentioned. When they are recognized, the human being may find the right path more easily. He cannot avoid them, but he cannot afford to yield to them. The representative of humanity. The Gotianum, or no, Gotianum at Danak. The Gotianum at Danak. In so far as the forces of Lucifer and Ahriman are concerned, man needs them and can use them. His present task is to find the balance. He must neither lose the world nor himself, and the problem becomes essentially one of awareness. To be conscious of evil is to take the first step in overcoming it. This is admirably illustrated in the story of Rumpelstiltskin. When the queen knows his name, he loses power over her. The story of Michael and the dragon illustrates the power of consciousness struggling with the forces of darkness. Lucifer, the light bearer, gave man the gift of understanding and the impulse towards freedom. A vital question is what man does with these gifts. If he uses his understanding in a purely intellectual manner, overlooking the spiritual world, then he falls prey to Ahriman, who will try to convince him that the earthly world is the only reality. If he uses his freedom for, If he uses his freedom for self-indulgence instead of self-development, he can only degenerate. If he uses his freedom for self-indulgence instead of self-development, he can only degenerate. And I can't help but point to the things that have been going on in the recent times that I witness, right, around the world, whether it's through news, through just when going out and about, focus on social media. What is everybody more tied to, focused on, and desiring? It's self-indulgence. A lot of self-indulgence. Drugs, games even. Whether it's TikTok, or just watching pointless things that don't actually add to your own self-development. The knowledge that can add to, therefore, developing wisdom. It's like a halt to superficial things, or being a part of things that only cause division, to rise more, right? And to kind of numb the awareness, to dumb down. So, just a very, from what I notice, it's like, it's a very self-absorbed society right now. And by the way, I'm not going to say, oh, I don't care about looking nice, and oh, I don't fall prey to these things. Trust me, I'm a human being. I do too. And I'm well aware of it. Now the next step is, how do I learn to not make that my focus? So I've been working on that and trying to develop myself in different ways, in ways that can deliver a message that can reach more out there in some way, and to also offer offer maybe some kind of opening and understanding of vulnerability that, as I go through this process of reading into these things, of learning new higher knowledges, and also from everywhere. I'm not just subjected to just one thing, right? I love to learn about many different things that apply to reaching a higher state of consciousness in a selfless way, not in a self-serving way. And though I still fall prey to those things, and I will admit that yes, there's certain things that will work better than others, and the way it's presented and all this kind of stuff. But really, the main message at the very core is I just want to reach out and see other perspectives. I want to really connect with others that on a spiritual realm, on a deeper level, where we can resonate and help to combat these Ahrimanic forces in some way, right? To help bring awareness to more people, if I can, and if we can. It's like, it's not a single effort. It is a collective effort. And so, anyways, I'm not even done yet, so I'm going to continue reading. Exclusive knowledge of the material world is Ahrimanic. Interest and enthusiasm are Luciferic. Knowledge combined with interest and enthusiasm provides the middle way. So I'm going to read that again. Exclusive knowledge of the material world is Ahrimanic. Interest and enthusiasm are Luciferic. Knowledge combined with interest and enthusiasm provides the middle way. To form illusions about ourselves is Luciferic. Objective observation is Ahrimanic. To observe our inner nature as from a third person's point of view is to provide the balance. To be able to step outside of yourself and look at look at yourself first without, sabotaging, because it can easily fall into self-sabotage when you direct it inwards, but really just looking at how we are all in this existence together, trying to figure things out and become better people, better souls, to help humanity as a whole that we are together. We should try not to get carried away by our own impulses. We must try not to look upon the world as something separate from ourselves. So that's another thing that I can get into sometimes. Sometimes I feel like an alien. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. I know that everyone else feels this similar feeling, but in different ways and in different areas. But yes, there are times where I can fall to that. It's like, oh, I'm just, on my own here, but what's to say that there's not somebody else that resonates with that same frequency, but just in different areas, different ways. And then how do they deal with it? How do they react to it? What is their response? It's going to be different, but still the vibration and the feeling, intuitive feeling and resonance is the same. Reaction's different. Man has to meet these two forces, which in the course of history, he has to recognize as evil. Yes, he has to contend with them, but in doing so, he furthers his own development and at the same time works toward their redemption. So in a way, it's kind of like, it's the whole like explanation between, instead of looking at the Luciferic type of influence as being evil or something you need to combat and is your opponent that wants to like kill you or something, they're just opposing. Essentially, in the end, we are the ones who make those decisions on our own. Of course, there is another entity with a different name that represents the forceful, people that like serial killers and all that kind of stuff. There's different entity for that, but I'm just talking about Luciferic and Aramonic. But yeah, it's like as they sacrifice their evolution, their soul involvement to help us out as we try to have evolution within our own souls, they have to be on the part of the opposition that they signed up for. And so by doing that, and as we overcome and start to become stronger, it helps them to redeem themselves as well, so that they don't have to be stuck in the role of the villain constantly anymore. It's like, who wants to play the role of the villain all the time? You know? So man has to meet, oh wait, I already read that. In a special hall in the Gotianum, Switzerland, the world center of Rudolf Steiner's work. Switzerland. Oh yeah, that's right. I talked about that. Is a huge wooden carving designed and partly executed by Rudolf Steiner himself. It portrays 3 figures. At the top is an angel-like form with broken wings. In the lower part, in what appears to be a sort of cave, is a devil-like figure chained. In the center and standing independently, one hand reaching upwards and the other down, is a figure usually referred to as the representative of humanity. As above, so below. In sculpted artistic form, this expresses the power of the Christ to overcome the 2 adversaries. One could also consider the figure as man between the 2 elements of his being. Now, the last part of this, the coming of Antichrist. The New Testament gives several references to the coming of the Antichrist. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, Christ himself is reported as giving warning of impostors. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. 24:5 of Matthew. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. 24:24. 24:24. St. Paul, writing to the Thessalonians, explains that the day of Christ will come after attempts at deception. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 3 and 4, verse 3 and 4. In the first epistle of John, we read, And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists. Yeah, we're so focused on, the one. There's the one big one. That's the deception that is being pushed. There's just one. Wait, is he here yet? I fall into that too, okay? But I mean, that's a very wise, the wisdom in just that. And as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now, right now, there are many already. 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. That's where it's from. From the book of Revelation 16, we learn of the battle of Armageddon, where the kings of the earth under demonic leadership will wage war against the forces of God. According to Rudolf Steiner, the prophecies will soon be fulfilled. Since the middle of the 15th century, an Aramonic influence has been pervading mankind in preparation for an actual incarnation that will take place in the near future. The influences such as have been described as are pointers, and Ahriman derives the greatest benefit if they are not noticed. This being who will incarnate will show great signs and wonders. He will attain worldly power and recognition and will offer mankind some sort of spiritual powers or insight for which little effort is required. Through disguise and deception, he will seek to establish a world in which true spirit is abolished. In the present discourse, it would lead too far to discuss the redeeming role of the Christ. This subject is dealt with elsewhere, but it can briefly be stated that Christ stands by man's side to help him in his struggle. Christ incarnated to combat evil in his kingdom is not of this world. His advice was to watch and pray. That is to say, mankind must be awake and active. Recognition of evil is the beginning of its conquest. To pray means to awaken the spiritual faculties and recognize the Spirit at first hand. But there is also another prophecy, and this concerns the imminent second coming of Christ. This event is not to be understood in the sense that Christ will again appear in the flesh, but that man will develop faculties by which he can experience Christ in the supersensible realm. It is in Ahriman's interest to forestall this, and hence his intense activity at present. The battle has been joined. If the human being is conscious of these matters, he is on the road to victory. The retarded beings must be confronted, and man can use the powers which they give. But he must avoid being dominated by them. Wow. Which essentially really means, just by being conscious and aware of these things, we are on the road to victory, right? As long as we are aware at all times of ourselves, of the forces at play, being able to spot out strategic, manipulative tactics in all areas and forms in a detached way, not looking from a third person, right? And because in order to not be dominated by forces that come from people who are not awake, who are not truly understanding what's going on and living unconsciously, will overcome you, because that's just the way it works, right? You can't talk sense into someone who doesn't want to wake up. You can't make anybody do anything or awaken or realize. They have to be responsible for their own awakening, for their own coming to truth and consciousness. So, and even for ones that have knowledge of this, we're human beings, we forget. But it's just by trying to incorporate those tools repetitively as to reprogram yourself to do that more often on a daily basis, it's easier to find ways to counteract it so that you don't fall prey to it. Like I said, I know I have much to learn, so much more to learn, but I'm excited to learn more. But I really have always resonated very much with these detached ways of looking at things from a bigger sense. Not that, I'm not trying to say, oh, I've always, no, there's many things where, I can definitely learn and a lot more about. But I guess on an intuitive level, right? Spiritually, on a soul level, I've kind of noticed and felt these things a lot over time. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I love this stuff. So, as you know, and I'll be reading more. Have a good night.